Okay, I think I'm ready. I want to talk to you today about the results of much of my research and where we are going to go to with my new research. So I want to give you a little bit of an insight in my motivations on the technical side about what we're going to do with the research. So let me tell you a few things, and I'm sure you will be interested in what I have to say because you will benefit from it greatly, not just from the research but also from the outcome of the research.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, I think I'm ready. I want to talk to you today about the results of much of my research and where we are going to go to with my new research. So I want to give you a little bit of an insight in my motivations on the technical side about what we're going to do with the research. So let me tell you a few things, and I'm sure you will be interested in what I have to say because you will benefit from it greatly, not just from the research but also from the outcome of the research. Because if it goes well, then you're going to have something that is going to cut your cost in healthcare, and it is also going to benefit you to provide you with biological tools, natural, civilized tools to increase the quality of your life during this period of relative progress, relative well-being, into a period of increased disaster damage because of climate change, because of war, because of poverty, any kind of change that can happen to people in this modern world. As you know, there are a lot of people who have a little bit of a conflicted feeling about reality. So as a result of that, we are not exactly sure about what we are going to go to in the coming years. At this moment, there are places in Europe and the Americas and other places of the world where there's a sort of backsliding going on to the 19th century. I predict this already in the 1990s when I was looking at all kinds of things, and I was like, oh, okay, if you look at the political agenda of people in different kind of areas of any kind of country, you can see that there are some shadowy people who would like us to go back to the 19th century because this is the time and the place where they have most control and where they can be most rich. In a similar kind of fashion, like the royal families, they still have in the back of their mind that one day these democracies, they will collapse, these dictatorships, they will collapse, and they can take their power back, and as a result of that, they can continue with being royal families again. When you look at the structure of power, you see that the world is divided between different kind of political systems. Everybody knows this, and people can condemn one system over another, but the reality is that in most cases we are living under an authoritarian regime, and this regime, even in democracies, is because of the single or multi-party system, where we are giving our power over our life away to somebody else, and where we give our power over our life away to multimedia companies or to factories who produce all kinds of things, to doctors who are treating us for all kinds of things that we don't understand, and so forth and so forth. So as a result of that, we are basically, as individuals, in all our wealth and poverty, we are prisoners. And in that process of being prisoners, we are going to experience a lot of different kind of problems. And these kind of problems, this is what this research is about. We're going to try to solve this, to give you tools to not feel powerless, to not feel victimized by that kind of society. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't give you some net benefit to live in that kind of society, because this is always better than any kind of alternative where you have less. So if you can maintain this situation, this is better than getting into chaos. This situation is better than getting into a place that is riddled by epidemics, or in a place that is being flooded by the sea, or that is being rummaged by earthquakes. Any kind of things, war, famine, becoming a refugee, all these kind of things, they are not preferable over anything that we do right now. But if we can gradually grow because of civilizing ourselves and our fellow beings and providing tools through which we can understand better what it means to be human and not trying to flee into programmed beings or into automation or into becoming absorbed by automation, or if automation leaves us somewhere on the side because automation and the rich, they don't need us anymore, then at that moment at least we have some tools, we have developed some tools together where we can help each other and where we can survive and flourish. So that's the point of my research. That's the main point of my research. And I would like to know from you, of course, if you can agree with these kind of things. If you can agree with these kind of things, you can do several things. You can become a member. You can give me a like. You can comment that you really agree. You can sign up for the conference. You can sign up for the research program, or you can just start following classes, and you will automatically be enrolled in the research program later when it is ready. You can come study Taoist medicine, Chinese medicine, because it is the techniques of this that is going to be used in this research. So if you are very fast, you could still become an assistant instructor in that program if you are quick enough, of course, because I hope within half a year that we are going to be ready. But you could do it if you start today. You could still get to that position. So let me go look at some notes, and we go talk a little bit about this, because when I look at my research, over time I gradually discovered, you have to understand, I am not the smartest person, right? So I have come to understand over time that people need something to survive disastrous times. I am every time being touched in my heart when I see people like in Gaza or in Ukraine or in Ethiopia or in Yemen or in Saudi Arabia or any other place where people are being repressed or where people are being hurt, where people talk about hurting other people, or where they try to take other people or other countries into possession for what reason, whatever. I see the pain for people and I feel that almost physically, and I'm like, okay, people are not smart enough to understand that when they hurt other people, they also end up hurting themselves eventually. You see that a lot of people like Gaddafi and what this guy called again from Iraq, they do not end up in a happy way in their life. They don't die in their deathbed. They're being, well, you don't wish that to anybody, but some people deserve it. When people are agitating against the freedom of speech, or when they're agitating against the freedom to have a comfortable life, when people are agitating against your rights, when you're a minority, then all these kind of things, they are eventually returning to the people who are doing these things. So I'm not worried about these kind of things. This is what I learned from my Taoist and my Buddhist teachers. And as a result of that, I am only thinking about what can we do for the future which will benefit us in either this situation or in any other disaster situation that can happen. So that research that I did started out a long time ago when I was studying Buddhism and Taoism in the beginning, and now I'm talking about, well, maybe 40 years ago when I started getting a little bit more serious about these things and practicing these things for 50 years. And at a certain point I was invited to write a book about Qigong, and from there I got invited to start studying at an international university and to start investigating what I was doing. So I started deepening my understanding of Chinese medicine, period, of Tai Chi Chuan, of Taoism, of Buddhism, of Confucianism, but also at the same time about the history of these things. So not just what it is now, but especially the history of the things and how people are continuously trying to take that history into possession and bend it to make it look like what they want it to be. My current translation project shows me that I was right to keep on pushing on that history and try to figure out all kinds of things, because there are a lot of things which clearly at this moment are not correct. And that doesn't mean that they're not helpful, because many of the things that people have been doing, they are helpful, but not necessarily correct. So a lot of things get lost, and we're going to talk about that. Because at the moment when I was doing this research, I started figuring out, okay, the history of Chinese medicine has so many different kind of tools that are at this moment not being used, that we cannot understand them as a result of that. For my research that time, for my first PhD, I spent about 13 years altogether doing this research, asking, doing anthropological research in the sense of partaking in communities and listening and getting acquainted with all kinds of people and getting to understand more about the underlying motives in Chinese culture as a whole and how that has been changed over time. So, for instance, already in 2003, I knew Xi Jinping was wanting to become the president of China. And people were already warning and say, like, okay, if Xi Jinping becomes president, he is like the son of Mao. So we don't know if that's going to be good. From some perspectives, maybe Xi Jinping is doing good, and other perspectives he's not. Because, of course, the nature of governments is to do both good and bad things. And as far as I'm concerned, China is not even the worst in that sense, although they have done very terrible things, and everybody knows that. Also in China, outside China, we all know that. And just like every other country has done that. My country, the Netherlands, has done that. Belgium has done that. France has done that. Germany has done that. England has done that. America has done that. America for sure, because this whole country is built on the Gaza Strip. In the sense that North America was the Gaza Strip, and the North Americans, they were the Israelis, and they were trying to conquer that continent. A very big Gaza Strip, of course. When you look at it from that perspective, you start seeing all kind of cracks in history, and then you start noticing, like, okay, Chinese medicine as a whole, when you look at the history of Chinese medicine, is ranging between self-care and care for other people. It is ranging between internalized practices and externalized practices. And some of these things are done by self-practice, some things are done by a therapist, and some things are done because of vanity. There are all kind of other things that have to do with that. And as a result of that, Chinese medicine came to the conclusion, look, whether you're a man or a woman, your life is going to go in stages. And these stages, they are important to know because these stages determine what you need to do to get healthy or to restore health or to lose your health also at the same time. So all these kind of things, they are more similar than you think they are. Then what I found is that somewhere between 13 and 20 different kind of base skills are required for our biological body, and Chinese medicine provides these 13 to 20 different kind of base skills, and they are categorized in different kind of subgroupings. These subgroupings, I have a list here, let me talk about that. These subgroupings, they are basically exercise, breath work, meditations, food medicine, and herbal medicine is an extension of food medicine, so it's not a separate thing, and anti-aging practices. Anti-aging practices, when they become vanity practices, they are more like looking good, not about necessarily becoming young again. So the thing, what we do in the Daoland program, is to help people recognize the different stages and get through these different stages and try to correct yourself and understand what you need to do. All these practices together is still a lot of things to practice, because when I was experimenting with that and I was trying to make people do all these things at the same time, or trying to create a program where you can move through to gradually build up all this knowledge, I came to the conclusion that this kind of knowledge should be given to children starting from a particular level, building gradually up until they're about 15 to 18 years old, so that they have all the basic skills that basically in tribal medicine everybody would have by the time they are an adult and they are at a reproducible age, because in the wilderness you need particular kind of skills. And these are not the same skills. Let me be clear about that. It's not tribal medicine per se, but it is the tribal structure. There is a need for people, for all people, for every family, to have a set of basic knowledges available. If you do not have these basic knowledges, then at that moment you are going to get eventually into trouble. And this is also why I at a certain point said, like, okay, what is then the most basic set of skills that people need? Well, that is actually pretty simple. People need meditation, people need something to understand about food, and they need to know how to exercise to keep their body into the best shape possible. So this is where I focused on, and my research, current research, is about these things, and from there it is very easy to grow out into all the other things. Meditation is at the foundation, and meditation is the foundation because it comes back in all these three things. They come actually back in everything. So at the moment when you talk about meditation, you're talking about developing your awareness, and the understanding of meditation usually is, well, a bit way off, because people very often think that meditation is good against stress. And it is good against stress, but research shows that some people, they just don't know how to handle meditation because their guidance is not proper. Meditation goes through particular kind of stages, and people have to understand these stages. So a program has to provide an understanding of these stages. They have to understand the first stage is struggling with your body. Your body has to be able to sit like how I'm sitting right now. At the moment when people sit for the first time, and they sit for instance in lotus position, things will hurt. Your knees will hurt, your ankles will hurt, your back will hurt, your neck will hurt, your shoulders will hurt. And so the struggle to be able to sit properly with your body for a longer time, this is what is required. Then you have to understand that your body goes through particular kind of cycles, and these cycles are feedback cycles, and each cycle stage takes about half hour. So you need about 4 half hours to get through one feedback cycle, where you do something, your body recognizes it and reacts on it, then you're correcting yourself and your body reacts on it again. So that means that any multiple of half hour for any exercise is better than doing 10 minutes or 7 minutes. So there are advertisements out there already for years, and nowadays you're being trashed with it even more, that you can do yoga, tai chi, fitness, or whatever kind of things for only 7 minutes per day. That is just not true. 7 minutes is not even enough to repeat a Tai Chi form in a proper way. A proper Tai Chi form, when done well, takes you about an hour at least, because 37 moves or 38 moves, maybe, depending on how long your form is, need to be done with a particular kind of slowness and attention, and as a result of that, you will need more time. This is how you become fit with Tai Chi Chuan. So it means that if you repeat a form 3 times, you have done already 1 hour practice. Then, of course, to learn Tai Chi Chuan, you need a lot of other skills. And from this set of other skills, this is basically where the Daoland program is based on. So we teach these kind of skills, so we teach Tai Chi Chuan, and we show you how you develop your health in a very simple way. But at the moment when we talk about meditation, this is the foundation of all these kind of things, because meditation makes you aware of all these stages and all these problems. And the first part is then, of course, struggling with your body. Then at that moment, when that is never passed, but at the moment when it is passable, then at that moment you start developing on the development, you start working on the development of your being. And when you talk about the development of your being, you start restructuring your mind, and that is a step-by-step process too, and it has to help you to develop and overcome your trauma without psychologizing things. Because one of the strong points of Taoist practice is that it tries to not psychoanalyze. So any person who says he does Taoist things and he starts talking about handling emotions and coaching and stuff like this from these emotions, and they talk about all kinds of things. I know a few, they are basically Western psychotherapists, and they just use Taoist things or Chinese things as an excuse. I know them from Wudang too. They're very often too young and too illiterate to understand these kind of things. Sorry to say that, but this is just how it is. And that doesn't mean that they don't help people. I don't want to say anything about that. If they help people, that's really great. But their name giving to things is usually off. That is a very important part. As a Taoist, you're not supposed to blame people, so I'm not trying to blame them, because I can see that they do help people, but they don't help with the things that they say that they help with. That's basically it. They help with other things. And at the moment, when you are going through these stages of meditation, the first things that you feel is that basically the Dantian has to help you develop a route for the development of Dantian and of the development of your yang. And as a result of that, your breath will be regulated. At the moment when you start developing a natural breath, then you can start doing breath work. If you look at people who are doing breath work, in general, they are trying to heat up your body. Heating up your body makes your muscles stronger, makes you feel very powerful, but also makes you age faster, because your heart is going to be taxed too much, your lungs are going to be taxed too much. And as a result of that, just like when you take drugs, you become more sensitive to infections. And when you grow older, you might be more sensitive to things like paranoia, through things like psychosis, or to even later to things like Parkinson or Alzheimer or other forms of dementia-related diseases. So not necessarily the best thing to go through. At the moment, when you then go further in your practice, you will start noticing when the young become stronger, you start to become more easily distracted. You find that you have all kind of great ideas, you have all kind of wonderful feelings, and so forth and so forth. These kind of things are distractions, and you just have to let go of these kind of things. I remember for myself in an early stage, was doing meditation, and then I would make notes all the time, so I would interrupt my meditation because of all the great ideas that I had. You have to learn to let go of your grandeur. So at the moment when Lao Tzu, for instance, talks about you have to learn modesty, this is basically what it means, is like let go of all your brilliant ideas. They might be brilliant, but they're not going to help you forward in your progress, and they will not help you root into being what you actually are as a human being. So then when we go to food medicine, that is another thing. At the moment when you talk about food medicine, you talk about the quality of food that you're going to intake. And in general, we know already, and many people practice this already, that when you eat less, this is basically the most natural thing we can do, because we are by nature scavengers, so we don't need to eat too much. At the moment when we eat too much, we simply are overeating. We have an instinct, because we're used to scavenge. If we can find food, we eat it. And as a result of that, if we have a lot of food in our kitchen or in our fridge or whatever kind of thing, we are going to eat everything until we're really full, because you never know, biologically, you never know if tomorrow there's still going to be food. So this is something that we have to learn to restrain. We have to learn to restrain putting everything in our food. So only 2 meals a day, small meals, is going to be fine. To have a little bit of fruit or veggies in between, just I'm talking like one leaf of a plant, or one berry, or one bite of an apple, one piece of a mandarin. This is going to be good, because every time when you take something like that, you still the potential hunger a little bit, and then you delay the need for gratification by eating. And then at the moment when you are eating a full meal, that means less than 2 handfuls of food. That means you have to make sure that you take small plates, small bits, so that you do not overeat. And then at that moment you start becoming more satisfied. And at the moment when you get past that point, then at that moment you are gradually starting to understand what your body needs. But that means you start understanding that it needs to eat less food, because that is our biological quality. But at the moment when you go further than that, you also have to understand what food does to you. And only when your stomach is relatively empty, you can start developing the meditative quality on food, through which you can understand what food does with you. So is food going to be poisonous to you, or is food going to be beneficial to you? Means, is it going to be medicine, or is it going to be poison? That means that some foods make you feel heavy and sluggish, and there are circumstances because of the cold or something like this when that might be helpful. But in general, being sluggish is not a good thing. So you try to avoid that kind of thing. So you do away with a lot of different kind of things that you don't really need. Oh, by the way, food medicine as a whole, in the past in China, rich people, they would have cooks in their service, and in their service they would every day take their pulse, decide what they need to eat, and as a result of that, they would continuously choose the ingredients that would improve the quality of that body, that person, for what they need in respect to their function. Of course, this is something only for rich people. We as individuals, we need to be able to do this. And this is the way how herbal medicine in the past was being learned. So by eating and by understanding how food actually is being taken in, you can become a medicine master about your own food. And herbal medicine is only an extension of that. So a herbal medicine practitioner who doesn't do that basic training actually is not a herbal master, but he is or she is a person who has learned by rote memorizing what ingredients do, and then like calculating 1 + 1 is 2, they combine different kind of herbs, and as a result of that they say the book says this is good, so take this. And that is a form of standardization. Standardization, of course, something that I do not agree with. Standardization is not good, because we are neither machines nor cars, nor robots, nor a algorithm. Then the last one, the Kung Fu Fitness. Kung Fu Fitness is very interesting because the word Kung Fu Fitness actually is not exactly correct. Because at the moment when we talk about Kung Fu Fitness, we actually means that fitness itself is a form of Kung Fu. Like health is a form of Kung Fu, and like a meditative state is a form of Kung Fu. So at the moment when we achieve fitness, there are different kind of sports and exercise that we can do. The principles of Chinese medicine actually is the use of the principle of Tai Chi. At the moment when we use the principle of Tai Chi, that means that we're continuously weighing to bring things in harmony with each other and try to polarize and depolarize processes to make sure that we eventually get a deeper understanding of what we can do, what we cannot do. At the moment when we are exercising, then because of that exercising, we actually start realizing that, and that is one of the things that also came out of my my research, is that our body doesn't function well if it isn't very mobile. So working on our mobility, working on our agility, and so on, all these kind of things are very important for our health. So that means that basically, or in essence, at the moment when we are doing exercise, we have to do work on our agility and our flexibility, and so on and so on. So at the moment when we go to the gym to become very strong, or to make our bones more massive, or to become more impressive in our muscles, we actually do a disservice to the health of our body, and that will pay itself back in a later stage, and it will, generate a sense of damage. You might feel great right now because of the dopamine rush that you go through every time, but in the end it is going to have negative effects. It's the same like when you take drugs. Because of the continuous rush that you are bringing yourself in, you're actually exhausting yourself, and as a result of that you also run the risk to become depressed and to have all kinds of other exhaustion related problems. Exercise is there then to feed you, food is there to feed you, meditation is there to feed you. So there are 3 forms of nourishment that you actually need to become healthy. So these all are things to compensate what you have by nature. That means that they always have to be put into the context of how your nature, how the nature of your body, but also how your own nature, your personal nature actually is, and the body form that you have, the way how inside the digestion and all the other things, how they work, and how your mind actually is able to process things and be aware of things and can recognize processes that need to be changed. All these kind of things, they are actually what we need for exercise. So that is why in our research we only research these 3 things to start with. So when people get into the research, they get 3 months of learning, and then we get 6 months of checking if things work out. You get 1 year. So you take a membership of 1 year, you pay a little bit for that, and in that membership you get everything. But it means that depending on which group, you get this, or you get this and this, or you get this, or you get this and this, or you get this, or you get this and this, or you get all these things together, and in the last 3 months you can catch up with all the other things. So then in the meantime, while we are researching your progress, we are going to implement changes to the program to make it better and to make it more attractive also for people to follow, and for organizations to implement it within their educational programs, or within the relief of suffering in all kind of refugee camps all over the world. Because even if you have already gone into that situation, you can still learn these things and try to improve your life. So this is one of the things that the program is for. So it is preventative, but it is also curative at the same time, to deal with situations where an actual solution is not available, because once people end up in a refugee camp, they stay there for a long time. You can just look at that for the Palestinians in Lebanon and in Gaza and in other places. They keep on living in a sort of refugee situation because they never get really the kind of peace that they need to grow out of there. At the moment when we have these researches done, then at that moment we're going to analyze these things, and we're going to make recommendations to all kinds of organizations, and we are going to be very thankful for what you have done to support us. And that means also that you, of course, as a stakeholder in this project for the future, you are going to be the seeds for future programs, for future developments. In your local schools, we might ask you, please go out to these local schools, do this kind of training also, and then get into these local schools and do this kind of programs there. Help these children, help these people, go to the elderly people home and make them exercise, make them pay attention to their food and so on and so on. All kind of things that are going to be necessary and which we then hope to achieve, so that whenever a disaster strikes in whatever kind of area, there will be people who know what to do to keep things civil. Because you don't know when a disaster strikes. Are people going to be civil to each other? When we look at small scale research and research on how people behave, say for instance an earthquake, or when there's flooding, or when there is a war area and things are bombed, in general people are helpful to each other because they're in a small scale. They have the knowledge that there is a larger world out there. But what if there is really an apocalyptic situation where nothing is there? The reliance on machinery is only temporary, because machinery will go away and there will no more be factories, or not too many factories, to provide everybody with the kind of help that they need. So as a result of that, cars will disappear, radios will disappear, computers, telephones, all these kind of things will disappear. And the only thing that we really can rely upon is what we know already about how to deal with ourselves and how we can maintain our own civility. Because at the moment when all these kind of things is gone, the chances that groups are going to be conflicting with each other for resources is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. So in this kind of training, we have to also learn how to become civil with each other and how to enhance communication in conflict situations. And I hope this actually is going to be very clear to you, and that you understand these things, and that you think like, well, I want to follow this, I want to make sure that I am involved with this. That would be really great, because the best thing that can happen to us is people who are really into these kind of things and they want to play that kind of thing. If you think like, but I'm really against it, also really great, because also then we need your support, because at that moment when you are against it, you can also give proper criticism. So both the good things and the bad things are required. We're going to give you interviews, you're going to fill in forms about your experiences, we're going to have focus groups and so on. So in all kind of ways, we're going to democratize your input to make sure that the research is as good as possible, and that afterwards the news goes out and that as many people can be helped as possible. So at this moment I'm also still looking for financial resources. I'm talking with several parties. It can take a few months, half a year maybe, before I have that. But in the meantime, I will keep on making videos about these kind of topics and things that are related to this program. So thank you very much. Let me keep you informed.